Welcome to Bamban Museum. I am the owner and the historian, the curator of the museum. This museum is a private museum. It's actually my museum. I built this, because my grandfather and my uncles fought during the war. And way back in 2000 and 2001, I was in Japan. When I was there, during my weekend, I used to do my research about what happened here during the war. And I met a lot of Japanese soldiers who were here during the war. Some of them were kamikaze Tokotai pilots. They survived the war. One of the soldiers who died in the Manjuyama is this Nihon Rikogun. Okay? His name is Masao Makihara. The family, the Marine family came here, yes, because their grandfather died in Bamban in June 1944. So they donated the photographs and they told me the story. And wow. These are the official, Onishi Chujo.
Oh, Onishi.
Kaigun, Chujo Kaigun, Fukodome, Chujo, Arima, Chujo. 1945, no more Tokotai. Then this Tsukada-san, the Shembu Shudan. So they were left to fight in the mountains. I coordinate with the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. For this, I told them, bring them back to Japan. And we continue to go to the mountains to search for this. Yes, we already handed over to the Japanese government 8 sets of remains like this. This is the recent one. This is the last one.
We have to say.
Yes, and we're still looking for the remains.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, because we believe humanitarian reason, they have to go back to your own country. They have families. Get DNA. Okay?
遺骨をまだ探してくれてて、で、揃うと日本の厚労省に。
This is Moji-san, and this is me. Oiso, and this is my Bamban Historical Society. And he died in 2008. And now his son is coming. This is his son in 2020. Only photograph of Colonel Ito or a Japanese officer with all of these American generals. And according to the generals, American generals here, Colonel Ito and their stay in Tarlac camp was the most, humane and the most comfortable. Yes, that's in the book. General Brugger, one of the American generals, wrote a book. Okay, after he went back, after the war, he went back to the States. In 1946, he published a book. The title of the book, The Long Dark Road by William Brugger. And I said, Moji-san, what will be the design of the Peace Memorial Tower? Go to where Onishi Chujo was buried in Sojiji, and we went there. This is the grave of Onishi Chujo in Sojiji, and this is the Memorial Peace Tower at the Onishi Jinja. We will be going to our Bamban WWII Museum and the Japanese styles, including the Kaigun series. Hi.
Our local historians areas for us. Yes, we're going to visit today.
This is a stretch of the Mabalacat East Airfield, and the exact location of the stretch of the highway used to be the runway of the airstrip. And the local government directed this after the eruption of Mount Tsuru. And I would like to share to you the historical highlights of this place. You know, this is what you call the Mabalacat East Airfields, one of the many satellite airfields, a armed air center that was constructed in February by the Japanese Navy. Misawa belonged to the 203rd Kobutai, and along with Honda, Sugawa, and Baba, they constituted the Shikishima flight on October 25 in the morning when they saw it from this airfield. And on the way in late dawn. At 10:45, they were already at the site. They detected the American carriers and made the ultimate sacrifice. Are you still alive and kicking? And you could see the rays of the sun in the early morning coming in front of your face. And the Japanese, they realized that for them it's important facing the sun. And I got those maps in my museum that identified this hill as Asahiyama. Okay? And the Japanese, they were not intending to fight the Americans on a face-to-face basis. What they had discovered was in Bamban Hills, the ground was so hard. It was actually volcanic, but we don't know that at that time. But only the Japanese engineers, they knew that the rock on these mountains was volcanic. And it was, the Japanese were expert in making tunnels. And they capitalized on that character of the grounds in Bamban, that they decided to fight the Americans by using the tunnel defense system. And all of these ridges and mountains from the north to the south, on a front of 20 kilometers and a depth of 16 kilometers, they fortified each and every hill with tunnels, just like in Iwo Jima, just like in Okinawa, Saipan. The biggest battles in the whole Pacific. Unknown to many, even the historians, that the Bamban Hills represented, the most extensive tunnel defense system ever fought in the Pacific, outside of Okinawa. And so they moved to these hills and ridges, curved 1,000 tunnels from north by Major Hoshino, who was in command of the 137th Airfield Battalion, the airfield battalion that was taking care of the Bamban Hikojo to the east. And they moved here in the middle of December. They fortified both sides of the hill. In fact, they even put some light artillery cannons, 120 mm naval guns, so that they could control the Americans who will be passing that road on the way to Rockville. So from here, we could go to the tunnel and we will see it in actuality. My grandfather and my uncles, they witnessed the war. And after the battle, they moved into these tunnels, and what they could see were just the littered bodies, burned bodies of the Japanese. Guys, you are standing on an hollow ground. You know, these tunnels became the open grave of the Japanese, around 40,000 of them. When I was in Japan, I was able to collect some of the documents of the Kempo Shodan. And some of the memoirs of the Japanese soldiers who were able to survive and went back to Japan, they wrote their own experience. And it is so tragic, you know. When I read that, we translated them into English, you know, as if humanity is being tested because of the impact of the war that had happened here. So you could see, you could touch, and by touching them, you can connect the history that happened here, the tragic death of the Japanese soldiers. Thousands upon thousands of them, they litter these places, literally burned. It's happened here, and it also happened in Okinawa, in Iwo Jima, and all the ferocious fights in the Pacific. The Japanese tunnels, these are testament, you know, on the folly of war. And even to these days, families in Japan comes to my museum, the bereaved families. They brought the pictures of their grandfathers, their fathers, their uncles. Yeah, so you may never know, okay? On way below us, there will be some bones of Japanese soldiers. These should become a memorial to the Japanese soldiers who died during Bamban. Okay. This is a drawing of a Japanese Commander Hoshino Butai, Major Hoshino Butai, inside the tunnel, giving instruction to the soldiers who were inside this tunnel. Okay, we already mapped this. This is the map. Something like more than 200 feet deep. The original height of this should be around 8 to 10 feet, and the width should be around minimum of 8, also up to 10 feet. And you could see these are not ordinary tunnels, they're quite big, because the Japanese, they use this to hide their supplies, food supplies, aircraft parts like that, you know. That's why they are quite big. And all of the hills, all the tunnels in these hills were this big. You could put vehicles inside. Okay, yes. So during the war, the Americans, they drew the tunnels they encountered, and it goes like this. Okay? So when you go back to Japan, this is one of the highlights of your study tour. Okay? This is another sketch on how these tunnels were made. Actually, the Koreans, Chinese, and Taiwanese were conscripted and became labor personnel. They called the unit Setetai and Setsutai, both the army and the navy. Okay, but their commanding officers were Japanese. And there is also another tragic history of these Koreans and Taiwanese, even Filipinos, laborers. A lot of them also died. Now I'm pressing the local government of Bamban to enact a law to protect this, because these are sacred grounds aside from historical ones. I told them, enact the heritage law. Don't ever destroy these tunnels. No, they are not only historic. My grandfathers and my uncles who were part of the guerrilla resistance during the war, they fought on these tunnels. The American soldiers fought and died here, and the Japanese, of course.